Incumbent Mayor John Tecklenburg and challenger William Cogswell will meet face-to-face with just days to go until voters decide who gets their vote. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent the people in the city of Charleston.
So Mr. Cogswell really hasn't been doing his homework.
When I look around at my city and what's happened over the 8 years, has it gotten better?
Live from the News 2 studio in Mount Pleasant, this is the Charleston mayoral runoff debate.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's debate. I'm your host, Brendan Clark, and we are just a few days away from the Charleston mayoral runoff election, which takes place Tuesday, November 21st, and voters making their final decision on who they want to lead the city of Charleston. So tonight, over the next 60 minutes, you will hear from each candidate, incumbent Mayor John Tecklenburg and challenger William Cogswell. But before we get started with tonight's topics and questions, we want to go over the rules. Every candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. If there is a follow-up question or a rebuttal, they will have 30 seconds. And when time is up, you will hear this sound. Each candidate will also have 60 seconds for a closing statement. So with that being said, it's time to begin the News 2 Charleston mayoral runoff debate with tonight's moderators, Carolyn Murray and Riley Benson. Carolyn, Riley, the floor is yours.
Brendan, thank you. Good evening, candidates, and welcome to our television and online audience. We are so glad you joined us tonight.
We encourage everyone watching to share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag #CHSMayorDebate.
A card draw determined who will go first. Mr. Tecklenburg, the first question is for you. In a recent poll of News 2 viewers, a majority said growth and development should be the top priority for the next mayor of Charleston. So we want to start with two of the biggest stalled development projects in the city of Charleston right now. First, Sumar Street. Sumar Street is a 2.5-acre property at the intersection of San Brittenburg Boulevard and Old Town Road, West Ashley. It's been vacant for more than a decade. Mr. Tecklenburg, what is your specific vision for the development of this property? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for having us this evening. Sumar Street is an amazing opportunity for West Ashley. And the city had its most engaged citizen comments and engagement over the future of the property. And the vision is to have a remarkable gathering place, a mixed use of retail, some civic use, but a place where families can gather with kids, have entertainment there, piccolo events, moja events, community meetings, a gateway to our city. And West Ashley deserves the very finest. They deserve what they called for in that development. And after the first of the year, we'll be going back to council and asking them to approve it. They just choked over the price of the parking for the development. We can make this happen. It's going to be a beautiful development.
Thank you, Mr. Tecklenburg. Mr. Cogswell, the same question for you. What is your specific vision for the development of this property, West Ashley at Sumar Street? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, the price is something big to choke on. I mean, it was $45 million of city funds that really don't exist. And so when I looked at it, again, this is a world I know. My opponent likes to talk about me being a developer, and in situations like this, it's good to have that expertise and experience, because when I looked at it, I looked at 2.5 acres and looked at what the city was trying to cram into that. And again, it was a well-intended plan, but I knew it would be extremely expensive. So I broadened the look and said, okay, this whole 30 acres should be redeveloped together. It would bring a lot more tax revenue in. The city could have a lot of control over it through a development agreement. And, you know, there's a lot of wood to chop on it, but I know enough about it that I can look at that and say, yes, this is very feasible and could be truly the gateway that has been long neglected in West Ashley.
Mr. Cogswell, you said that there's a lot to think about here. Can you offer a few more details about how you would pay for this kind of plan? And you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I think that it would be a joint venture, a public-private partnership. Again, the city controls tax revenue or TIF funds and where public improvements can go, and then you would allow the private sector to develop. But you can control the density, you can require workforce housing, you can require green space requirements and resiliency. So there's a whole host of different things that you can do that has not even been touched under the current plans.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, you said that potential voters and that the public kind of choked because they looked at the price tag. So describe how you would pay for what you envision for Sumar Street, and you have 30 seconds to respond.
So it was a few of our council members that choked over the price tag. Actually, we had a funding mechanism in place, two different sources, parking revenue and a tax increment finance district that we created just for this purpose, to revitalize West Ashley. And I know Mr. Cogswell thinks he could just magically own the 30 acres across the street, but it's privately owned. I've spoken with the owners of that shopping center. They have their own plans for the center, including relocating the Publix shopping center there.
Thank you, Mr. Tecklenburg. Riley? Did you want to respond?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not talking about the city owning it, just to be really clear, and I've talked to them as well, and I know it's very feasible, and so it just requires vision and leadership, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Riley.
Carolyn, thank you. Candace, we're going to stick on the same topic and move to our second question tonight. Another project that could change the face of Charleston is Union Pier, the single biggest transformational project on the peninsula in decades. Residents pushed back on the original plan for this property, sending the city and the State Ports Authority back to the drawing board. Mr. Tecklenburg, how can this plan be reworked to strike a balance between what the city wants and what residents want? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, it was the State Port Authority's plan that they brought to the city, and I said from the very beginning that it was too tall, it was too dense, there were too many hotel rooms, it wasn't like Charleston, and there was not enough affordable housing. They made a little progress on the affordable housing, but not on the other fronts. And it was clear after they went through city response and community engagement that we just had to start all over with them. And they agreed to do that finally, which is good. We're on a good path now with the leadership of the Riley Center at the College of Charleston, a community committee. In fact, they're meeting tonight with the Sasaki group that they've chosen to help guide the development of that going forward. It's got to be like Charleston. It's got to be in the scale of Charleston, and it can be and it will be a great development.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, the same question will now go to you. How do you strike this balance? And you have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. Union Pier has the ability to be incredibly transformative, not just for the peninsula of Charleston, but the city at large and really the entire region. But the difference between Mayor Tecklenburg and myself is that he's talking about reacting to the plans that Lowe and the ports had already presented. I'm the type of mayor that would be proactive in putting forward a vision for that site that is what I think and City Council thinks the city would have and want to have there. And it would be certainly lower density, more green space, more resiliency, and not as expensive of infrastructure. And yes, the port will lose money on it. It wouldn't be the highest and best use, but that is where you need to go to the state and work with them so that their financial obligations don't fall on the citizens of Charleston. We need to have residents first.
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, if you'd like to respond, you have 30 seconds to do so.
So Mr. Cogswell knows as a developer that if you own a piece of property, you can come to the city and make a proposal. That doesn't mean it's going to be accepted. The vision that we have together for this property is to open up the waterfront to our citizens, have a beautiful waterfront park, really an extension of the existing waterfront park further to the south, to really deal with the flooding and the coastal resiliency on the property, and open up Concord Street. You can improve mobility as well.
Mr. Cogswell, 15 seconds.
There's a very important distinction there, though, and it's just not a private developer. It is a state entity that owns the property that the city gave the land to years ago. So I think there's, it's not quite like just anybody coming and making a submittal.
Mr. Cogswell, a follow-up question for you on the same topic. The College of Charleston's Riley Center for Livable Communities has advocated for a design at Union Pier that would give people easy access to the waterfront. Do you support this? Why or why not? You have 30 seconds to respond.
Absolutely. I think the waterfront, particularly at Union Pier, belongs to the public, and it's one of the greatest amenities that we have in our city. So without question, in working with the Riley Center under my administration, I would make sure that there was an easement, if nothing else, but hopefully retention of ownership of the waterfront, and have an extension, in essence, of the battery as part of my raised edge concept.
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, you mentioned this group. You talked about the Riley Center for Livable Communities meeting tonight. So the same follow-up question now goes to you. Do you support this? Why or why not? And you have 30 seconds to respond.
As I mentioned, as part of the vision and its most incredible waterfront property, I think, on the east coast of the United States, it belongs to the public. It ought to be open access. In fact, to have public access to the waterfront all around the peninsula of Charleston has been a goal of the city for decades. And this is an important connecting piece between the waterfront park further to the south and the aquarium and the IM to the north. It's going to be a great public amenity, but we got to make it right, and it's got to fit in with Charleston.
All right, candidates, thank you. We are going to move on to a question on flooding. It's a topic that was a major concern among viewers who we heard from. Brendan Clark is standing by with that viewer question. Brendan?
Riley, thanks. Flooding, a top concern for all Charlestonians, but global warming and rising sea levels around the world cannot be stopped by one city's mayor. You have both called this an existential crisis. Let's now go to a question from Luke, who lives in the Wagner Terrace neighborhood. Luke says, much of the Wagner Terrace neighborhood downtown is far enough above sea level that storm surge shouldn't be a problem. However, the streets flood badly when there's a downpour. Mr. Tecklenburg, when and how do you plan on fixing the old drains so this type of flooding is mitigated? You have 60 seconds.
So there are flooding risks of all kinds. There's surge, there's stormwater, there's tidal. When we have a big rainfall and it's a high tide, in low-lying areas and even in Wagner Terrace, it can be hard for stormwater to get out. So part of the perimeter protection plan is to take into account these other types of flooding risks. In some cases, it involves upsizing our pipes, even adding pumps. The proposal recommends 10 pumps added around the perimeter of the peninsula of Charleston in various locations. But you have to include all the flooding risks, including tidal and sea level rise as well. We expect over the next 27 years to see an additional 14 or 15-inch increase in sea level rise. And that impact has to be taken into account for our flooding and stormwater strategies as well. It is being.
Mr. Cogswell, same question to you. When and how do you plan on fixing the old drains to help when it comes to the problem of flooding? 60 seconds.
Absolutely. One of my biggest issues on this is action versus planning, and particularly when it comes to deferred maintenance. And we have a lot of deferred maintenance. What this individual is talking about in Wagner Terrace, I believe, is just cleaning out drainage ditches, which the city has been trying to do, but it has not had the attention, frankly, that it needs, clearly. So now we're talking about these Army Corps studies, which gets really complicated. I do think that the Post and Courier did a really good job of breaking things down in their article today in the paper. But bottom line is the perimeter protection that the mayor just referenced, talking about sea level rise and tidal flooding, really the main scope of that, and to get the federal funding, you need to withstand a 15-foot storm surge. I mean, that is the scope for that particular program. So I want to take a much more holistic approach and work with the other core study, not to complicate things, but it is complicated.
Gentlemen, thank you. I'll be back later with more viewer questions, but for now, more topics and more questions with Carolyn and Riley. Back to you.
Brendan, thank you. Candidates, we will stick with the issue of flooding. We've talked about the seawall project as a way to protect downtown Charleston from flooding events, especially like the ones that we've been talking about right now. We think about the medical district. Flooding is such an issue in the medical district. You think about what's happened with Roper Hospital and them deciding to move from downtown Charleston into North Charleston. And they say it is in part because of flooding. So let's think about what's happening here. The loss of revenue and also the loss of jobs from downtown Charleston. This question is for you, Mr. Cogswell. What additional flood mitigation projects can be completed in the interim to protect this vital asset to the city and residents' health care? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, my plan on flooding, particularly for the peninsula, is to do an elevated edge, but not at the scope and scale and frankly cost that the Army Corps plan calls for. I think you can cover the elevated edge at a smaller, in essence, a smaller size wall, and I've called it an extension of the battery. Under the second Corps study, again, it's complicated, and I appreciate that. But what that would do is it would protect the medical district, Lockwood Drive, and on around the other side of the peninsula on Morrison Drive from tidal flooding. And that is something that affects us on a day-to-day basis versus the, once in a generation storm that the original Corps study gets. So again, very complicated, but there's an important nuance that bears distinction.
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, the same question for you. What additional projects can be completed in the interim to protect this vital asset to the city and residents' health care? You have 60 seconds to respond.
So lots, and we're doing them. We are doing specific projects, and it's relative to the last question as well. In the city, there's over 32 active projects right now, over $100 million worth of investment in stormwater infrastructure. And some of the important ones are around the medical district. In fact, we've finished phase 4 of the Spring Fishburne Tunnel. It's working by gravity. We hadn't closed the Septima Clark Parkway this year from bad rainstorms because it's been open. That system is working. Last night, we approved $37 million contract to finish phase 5, the last 5 that will install the pumps there. We've already extended the tunnel now another few blocks over to the middle of the hospital district to Earhart Street, which will provide 35 acres right in the heart of the hospital district. And this is why it's so important to do the perimeter protection. Now Mr. Cogswell's in favor of it, but he doesn't want to get the federal government to help him.
No,
I hate to tell him we need their help.
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, if you would like to rebut, you will be allowed 30 seconds.
I'm
please.
a pragmatist. I don't want to waste 4 years on something that is going to have a very difficult time getting approved because it only helps the peninsula, and it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the citizens of Charleston. And I don't know how Mayor Tecklenburg is going to sell that to the residents of Johns Island, West Ashley, James Island, and Daniel Island when they're going to have to pay for it, and it won't help them at all. It'll actually make things much, much worse.
Mr. Tecklenburg, if you would like to respond, 15 seconds, please.
Sure. So now he's saying he wants to do a wall, but just not as high or maybe not as good as the one that we would build together with the federal government, who's already authorized us to have the opportunity for them to pay for 65% of the cost.
Right.
He doesn't even have an estimate for his plan. He's not doing his
You don't
homework.
have a design for your plan. I mean, you have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Would you like to respond? You can have 15 seconds.
Look, this is a very complicated subject. It really is. And in fairness, it's very difficult to kind of wrap up in 1 minute. I would reference, I think the Post-and-Courier did a very fair article today on our positions on flooding, and I think it's worth referencing. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Riley?
Carolyn, thank you. Candidates, according to a 2022 study by the South Carolina Department of Transportation, more than 75,000 cars cross the Septima P. Clark Parkway each day. Crosstown is one of the many major city roadways that routinely sees bumper-to-bumper traffic. Mr. Tecklenburg, are Charleston's traffic troubles part of a bigger problem of outdated infrastructure? And what are your plans to improve our commute? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, the city has to collaborate with its partners, and that's primarily Charleston County and the South Carolina Department of Transportation. They get the funding for actual roadway improvements. That funding doesn't come to the city of Charleston, so we collaborate with them. For example, downtown we have the South Carolina DOT prepared to do about a $4 million improvement for safety improvements in crosswalks. With Charleston County working with them, there are now 34 active projects in the city of Charleston for roadway improvements, including the widening of the Glen McConnell that's going on right now, construction of the northern pitchfork on Johns Island that's going on right now that will be finished first quarter of next year. But there are many, many others. I can't cover them all in 1 minute. But that's the ticket, is for us to collaborate with our partners because they have the funding streams.
Mr. Mayor, I want to ask for a point of clarification. How do you pay for those additional projects in the future? You have 15 seconds.
Again, the funding stream goes to the county and to the SCDOT. So we have to work with them, making requests, setting priorities for the projects that we would like to see accomplished within the city of Charleston. Some of them will go to the county sales tax referendum again next year. We work all the time with the DOT to make those improvements as well.
Tecklenburg, thank you, appreciate it. Mr. Cogswell, are Charleston's traffic troubles part of a bigger problem of outdated infrastructure? What are your plans to improve our commute? You have 60 seconds to respond.
I mean, there's no question. I mean, just go on to Johns Island, go on Folly Road, go on Glen McConnell. I mean, certainly the crosstown. Our infrastructure is extremely dated, and we are way, way behind. And the mayor's right. He is right in terms of the funding. It comes from the county, it comes from the state. But it's up to the city to put the ask in, and it needs to be an organized ask. And yes, it is hard to get money out of the other government agencies. I respect that, but it can happen. But you've got to be very organized and direct in the ask, and you've got to be way ahead of it. Because what's happening right now is the development that is occurring in our region, I think everybody can appreciate, is so far ahead of the infrastructure that it's crushing the people that live here and the quality of life and economic development. I mean, it is starting to drown, pun intended, on the flooding, economic development in our region.
All right, candidates, thank you. Carolyn, Mr. Tecklenburg, 15 seconds.
I would just like to say I'm totally supportive of completing 526. And 6 years or so ago, when I had to go to Columbia just to resurrect the project, it was dying on the vine. Mr. Cogswell was in the legislature. He didn't even show up when we were fighting to keep that project alive, and it's still alive.
It's still alive. It's still alive.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell,
and just to be absolutely clear, the state has always funded its share, and it is committed to its share. We need to figure out where the local money's coming from, and it is continuing to balloon upwards. The mayor said he was going to do a bake sale for that. I mean, where are we? The state has fulfilled its obligations.
All right, candidates, thank you. We're going to move along now. Carolyn.
Riley, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, Mr. Tecklenburg, in the wake of the civil unrest across the country, including right here in Charleston in May of 2020, the city of Charleston established a special commission on equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation. This committee made recommendations to the city of Charleston, made it to city council on ways to improve race relations, but council voted not to adopt those recommendations, and the group's work has since stalled. Mr. Cogswell, under your leadership, would you expand this commission? And if yes, would you promote its independence to perform its functions? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Yes, I think it's communication on such a topic as that is incredibly important, and having dialogue. So I think absolutely it should be resurrected, if you will, and pushed forward. The one exception I would say, though, is it needs to have some parameters. As I understand it, what happened with that study is there were, in essence, no parameters. It was well intended, it was put out there, but there were no four corners in terms of objectives that they were to achieve. And so what happened was you get a lot of people in a room, and sometimes some of the more extreme views get forced into the document. And what that did, again, as I understand it, kind of tanked the whole thing. And which is unfortunate, because I think there were a lot of really good recommendations in there that I would like to see come to fruition.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, you actually supported this commission. So how would you expand it and promote its independence to perform its functions? And you have 60 seconds to respond.
So what I supported was to consider at least what they were recommending. And despite the fact that council did not choose to receive the report, I picked out of there the good recommendations. I'll give you an example. In first quarter of this coming year, we'll be opening the city's first Minority Women's Business Incubator, right on Lee Street, 8,000 square feet to promote minority and women-owned businesses. That recommendation came from that special commission. By the way, we've formed a HARC committee, what we call our Human Affairs Racial Conciliation Commission. It's modeled after the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission to continue that important work, to have that dialogue and make further recommendations to the city on how we can be more equitable and more fair in our city. But there are other recommendations, like on affordable housing that the original commission made. We've been following those as well. We've been rezoning the Upper Peninsula to bring more affordable housing.
Thank you for your responses. Riley?
Carolyn, thank you. Candidates, we're going to move on to our next topic. In the lead up to Election Day, each of you has targeted your opponent and their political practices. Let's take a listen to a portion of a recent news conference held by Mr. Cogswell.
So Tecklenburg, a longtime Democrat, is collaborating with not one, but two dark money groups to lie about me. And he is doing it with the help of Donald Trump's lawyer in a juvenile attempt to cover his tracks.
Mr. Tecklenburg, would you like to respond to the allegations? You have 60 seconds to do so.
Well, I think the attorney he mentioned, I utilized about 4 years ago for a different topic, so I don't know where that came from. But, you know, I think Mr. Cogswell was just trying to flip the conversation, because it was really him that started using dark money funding in his campaign months ago. Here's a flyer that he was handing out last summer that's paid for by Prosperity Alliance. That's not his campaign. And it was being distributed by workers that they flew in from Iowa who had been working for Ron DeSantis, and I guess they had nothing else to do. He brought them in here to, we don't know who's really paying his workers and who is funding these kinds of things. He started this months ago. I think he's just trying to change the topic.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, 30 seconds to respond to that.
Yeah, there's an important distinction. John, if you could pull that back out, let's look at it. Is there anything negative on that about you, or any lies on that? It's just about me, right? It's just information on me, right? Yeah, that's what I've seen them. I've seen them.
Where's the money coming from?
It's an organization that I'm not associated with. Whereas yours, your attorney, who you paid $10,000, we found the documents where they set up two LLCs to spread lies about me, John. Lies. And words matter, John. They really do matter. You know how many threats we've gotten?
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, you have 15 seconds to rebut if you wish.
The payment he's referring to was made in 2019. The gentleman represented me on another matter. Had nothing to do with that.
Well, that gentleman is the one that put the two organizations together that sent out these lies. So a small coincidence, I guess.
All right, candidates. Let's now take a recent listen to a comment from Mr. Tecklenburg made about Mr. Cogswell.
A candidate who's supported by the Moms for Liberty. If you like the way they're running the school board, then they're coming for City Hall too. I don't think that's good for the future of our city. So I think that's a clear distinction.
Mr. Cogswell, you have 60 seconds to respond to that if you wish.
Yeah, it's pathetic because that is the lie that the PAC set up. And so here we are talking about it again, but I want to say to you and the people of Charleston that Moms for Liberty is not supporting me or endorsing me or helping me in any way, shape, or form, and I have no connection to Moms for Liberty. All of this is a fabrication by his attorney or somebody that he paid $10,000 to set this up to spread all the rumors. So again, very important distinction. There is dark money in campaigns. He has plenty of PACs working for him. The difference is giving a positive message versus making up lies. And I'm telling you, words matter. Words matter. I've gotten threats. My family's gotten threats because he's calling us an extremist when nothing could be further from the truth. And he's been debunked on that countless times again, but he keeps saying it.
Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg, you have 30 seconds to respond if you wish.
Well, Riley, it's just not a lie. In fact, Moms for Liberty put out recommendations from their social media administrator recommending William Cogswell for mayor. As late as just 2 days ago, we have the screenshot from the head of the local Moms for Liberty with a runoff early voting Cogswell for mayor. They clearly are supporting, and it's real easy, William. All you would have to do is return their money and denounce them.
They haven't given me any money.
They
haven't given me any money. I just let people know. I just let people know.
Thank you. Mr. Cogswell,
and let me just be
15
clear.
seconds to respond.
Okay, yeah. A comment on a Facebook page does not equate to fact. And if they're going to vote for me, great. I want to have 100% of the city of Charleston's vote. I want conservatives and I want liberals. I want Republicans and I want Democrats. He's trying to make this a partisan race, and Charleston deserves better.
Mr. Cogswell, just to follow up, in that first comment, we heard you call Mr. Tecklenburg a Democrat. Would you like to respond to that?
And which first comment?
The first comment we had from you in your press conference at the start of this topic, you called Mr. Tecklenburg a Democrat.
He's a known Democrat. I just thought it was weird that he would be hiring Donald Trump's lawyer who defended Donald Trump in the January 6th riot claims. I mean, so I just thought that was a little odd.
All right. Candidates, thank you. We're going to move along. Carolyn?
So today I had a press conference with both Republicans and Democrats supporting my reelection. When I first ran 8 years ago, I had a gentleman wanting to know, are you a Democrat or Republican? I said, sir, if your house catches fire, I'm not going to ask you if you're a Democrat or Republican. I'm just going to get the fire department there as quickly as I can
totally
to put out your fire.
Candidates, thank you. We're going to move along. Carolyn?
Riley, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you. Moving on to another issue, and this issue regards crime and safety. Statistics and data from the FBI show hate crimes have increased up to 70% over a 4-year period here in South Carolina. The two of you may remember hate crimes legislation was actually the most important topic for the LGBTQ plus community forum that you both participated in. We know that South Carolina does not have a hate crime law, but how would you make Charleston safer for people who live here and fear for their safety due to such issues as race, religion, or how they identify? Mr. Cogswell, we begin with you. You have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I think it is embarrassing that the state of South Carolina does not have hate crime legislation. I was in the legislature an advocate for hate crimes legislation. It's where Wendell Gilliard and I became really good friends, and why he, a Democrat, is supporting me in this campaign. And so I think you really need to start there. The city of Charleston does have hate crime statutes, but it's not enough when it comes to actually deterring people from committing these kind of heinous acts.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, how would you make Charleston and surrounding communities safer for people who live here but fear for their safety here because of issues such as race, religion, or how they identify, and that they might be targeted because of those issues? You have 60 seconds to respond.
By supporting our police department, as I've done, and having our police have the mindset, which they do, of being guardians for our citizens and being respectful of all our citizens. But I am proud that Charleston was the first city in the state to have its own hate crime bill. And yes, I agree with Mr. Cogswell. The state woefully needs to pass. We're one of only 2 states in the nation that doesn't have a hate crime bill. I'm sorry y'all couldn't get it passed while you were up there. Let's keep working on that. I understand there's some state legislators upstate for some reason are opposed to this. I don't understand it, but we're showing the leadership in the city of Charleston. We've shared our ordinance with other towns and cities all over the state. Many of them have passed it. Last night, by the way, we updated our definition of anti-Semitism because that's particularly on the rise in the world today.
Mr. Tecklenburg, Mr. Cogswell, thank you. Riley.
Carolyn, thank you. Candidates, we're going to move on to education now. In the last debate, we discussed calls from parents and local officials to break away from the Charleston County School District due to a lack of recent transparency and diplomacy among the Board of Trustees. Mr. Tecklenburg, you said during our last debate that you would advocate for the state to allow deconsolidation if the board fails to become more transparent. Do you stand by that position now? You have 60 seconds to respond.
I do. The board needs to be transparent. They need to get back to the business of minding our children's education rather than some of these social issues they seem to be obsessed with. They need to be able to build a consensus, and that's why the mayors and I recommended that on important issues like hiring a superintendent, that they require themselves to have a supermajority. We do that at city council sometimes. They should take that extra step so they can build consensus. The next step, if they don't start really pursuing kids' education, is to go back to the legislature and ask them. They really didn't make the right decision, William, when y'all passed that governance for the school board that allowed them to be elected without a majority, only a plurality. That was a mistake. That can be corrected by the state legislature, and we hope they'll do that.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, at the time of our last debate, you said it wasn't something you'd given much thought to, but, quote, would probably say no. Now that you've had some time to think about it, would you support moving forward with an independent school district? Yes or no? You have 60 seconds to respond.
I think it will be a real challenge just from a financial standpoint, just the way school funding comes in through our state through Act 388. So to deconsolidate, I think, would be a strong budget challenge. Again, they haven't done an analysis of this. They've had some press conferences about it and mentioned it during those, but I think that's not the constructive way to work together with the school district. I do think it's unfortunate what's going on there, but again, what I would have done rather than have a press conference and get up on a soapbox and tell a group of elected officials what they're doing right and wrong, I would have expressed my concerns directly with them, as I understand it, and talking to members of the school board on all sides, that nobody was really contacted about that, and that just kind of came out of nowhere. It was more of a political stunt than really anything.
All right, candidates, thank you. We're going to move on to another topic, business. Brendan Clark has a viewer question. He's standing by. Brendan?
Candidates, this next one comes from Beth Ann in West Ashley. Take a listen.
Good evening, Mayor Tecklenburg and Mr. Cogswell. My name is Beth Ann Gallagher, and I live in West Ashley. My question is, what is your plan to keep small businesses viable and large chains out of downtown and in West Ashley? Thank you.
Mr. Cogswell, we will begin with you on this topic. What is your plan to help small businesses keep the chain stores from taking over downtown and West Ashley?
Sure. The biggest thing is the business license and permitting process in the city of Charleston is a joke, and so choked up and dysfunctional. I mean, the fact that the office opens at 10 and I think closes at 2 is a huge deterrent and problem for small businesses. I had a meeting yesterday with a small business owner who opened up a wine store, a tasting room on, I believe it was Cumming Street, and it's a 400 square foot space. And it took him, I think he said, 9 to 12 months to get the business license and the occupancy that he needed to open his doors. A small business can't afford that kind of delay. Who can afford that kind of delay are the big box tenants. And so we're losing a lot of character because of the city's dysfunction.
Mr. Tecklenburg, same question. What's your plan to help small businesses and keep the chain stores from taking over downtown in West Ashley? 60 seconds.
So, in fact, in the last couple of years, over 2,000 small businesses have opened in the city of Charleston. Over 500 of those were West Ashley. We have a division of business services at the city. Meg Thompson leads it up. She's got other capable help. If you need assistance at all, please contact them. They're really terrific at working with businesses to get started. Now, the gentleman, Mr. Cogswell, refers to open a small restaurant. And I got to tell you, when you deal with restaurant openings, I've opened one before. You not only deal with the city, but the Charleston water system with DHEC, all these requirements, and it can be complicated. So you got to follow the path and get the help of our business services. We provide, by the way, other resources, as we will be with our incubator I mentioned a few minutes ago. The city started something called the Climb Fund. We offer lending to all small businesses. And by the way, I wanted to share about downtown and on King Street. There's a healthy mix of small and local and national businesses.
We have another question submitted from a viewer tonight. This one is from Thomas, who says Johns Island is continually neglected by the city. The island suffers from major infrastructure issues, crime, and a lack of police presence. What will you do to address these issues? Mr. Tecklenburg, we'll begin with you. 60 seconds.
Did you say Johns Island?
Johns Island, yes.
Johns Island. Yeah, we've been playing catch up, y'all, on infrastructure over there. As I mentioned a minute ago, the northern pitchfork is under construction right now. The county and the city have been collaborating the last few months and have realigned our plans for the southern pitchfork, so that could be added as well. And we're committed together to add that fourth lane on Maybank Highway coming into town. It will require going through the woods a little bit, but we're going to make that happen and improve the intersection. The city, by the way, is breaking ground first quarter of next year, maybe first half of next year, for a new fire station, station number 23 on Maybank Highway. And in the last year, we bought 2 other pieces of property for park expansion, and we're working with the Conservancy Group to expand the Angel Oak park. But thanks for voting for the parks referendum. We're going to build a wonderful recreation center and swimming facility on Johns Island.
Mr. Cogswell, same question for you. How would you handle the issues on Johns Island that Thomas talked about? You have 60 seconds.
Johns Island is a mess. I mean, it is a disaster. It is case in point of development being years ahead of the public sector and the infrastructure. And the pitchfork that the mayor referred to, I'm glad they've started working on it a few months ago, but I mean, the plan has been around for almost 10 years. And so it is frustrating for people that live out there that are trying to commute to and from work, to and from school, that are sitting for hours on end in traffic. And so, yeah, there's some solutions that we can do now. We have to really be aggressive on the pitchfork. We have to be aggressive on the flyover. Absolutely, 526 is a huge part of it, but that's going to be 8 to 10 years away in all reality. So we cannot wait on that. We need to widen Maybank Highway. We need to change some of the timing of the lights during certain times and turning lanes. I mean, some simple things would really help alleviate and enhance the quality of life on Johns Island. I intend to do that in my first year in office.
Gentlemen, thank you. We have more topics and more questions. For that, we go back to Carolyn and Riley.
Brendan, thank you. Candidates, we will now move to the issue of leveraging your influence, whomever is elected mayor. So the question is, what is your willingness to stand up and challenge South Carolina legislators on contentious issues such as reproductive rights, access to guns, environmental protections, and as we've talked about before, hate crimes legislation? Mr. Cogswell, we will begin with you. Now, you previously served in the State House of Representatives, so you've had a chance to work alongside state lawmakers. What is your willingness to push back against state legislators on issues that impact constituents here in the city of Charleston? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, I would say, take, for example, the hate crimes legislation. Absolutely, you can use your position as the CEO of the largest city in the state to leverage for that. But where I would say you would want to use most of your focus is things that affect people's day-to-day lives that, frankly, the mayor and city council can have some control over with the county, particularly on infrastructure, because most of the funding, federal and state, obviously comes through our state legislature. So it's important to have really good relationships up there and make sure that you can ask. Joe Riley was a master at this. He would go up there and work with legislators and spend a lot of time up there because it's essential to have those relationships to get things done. And unfortunately, the mayor, while he's mentioned that he's been to Columbia twice for 526, I was up there for 6 years and rarely saw him. I think he was up there maybe 3 times total in the 6 years that I served, and that's just not going to cut it.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, the same question for you. You have 60 seconds. Describe your willingness to challenge South Carolina legislators on contentious issues.
So I've been to Columbia quite a few times, William. Unfortunately, you weren't there quite a quite a bit of that time. I think in the 6 years you served, you missed 1/3
Well, I think I got
of
my
your votes.
attendance record. You got
And
your
Mr.
props.
Cogswell, you will have an opportunity to respond with a 30-second rebuttal. Mr. Tecklenburg, please continue.
So one safety issue that I've been to Columbia, Chief Reynolds went to Columbia, yeah, Mayor Riley went to Columbia. I don't know why it's taken the legislature so long to wake up to have tougher penalties for repeat offenders having illegal guns. You go and shoplift, and every time you shoplift, you get a bigger fine, a bigger penalty. You can have an illegal gun and get caught again and again and again. It's the same thing. Why can't the legislature pass just sensible, common sense gun laws that protect our citizens from criminals with guns? So I must say the other part is to focus on getting the funding we need. That's why I went to Governor McMaster and got $10 million to help us with that medical university tunnel extension.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
many more.
That I helped with.
Thank
Right,
you.
yeah.
Mr. Cogswell, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Yeah, again, he likes to point to my record up there. I'm very proud of my record up there. Here's my attendance sheet. For the 6 years that I was there, it shows that I have an 86% attendance record. He talks about votes. Some are procedural votes. Yes, I did miss some votes, but I was also chair of the Business and Commerce Committee. You don't get to be chair of a Business and Commerce Committee if you're absent. So I'm proud of my time up there. I'm going to use that experience and relationships to help move our city forward and not do these little political talking points.
And candidates, you both brought additional information with you. We ask that you refrain from pulling them out as we were not prepared for that. We appreciate it, though.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Riley.
Carolyn, thank you. Candidates, we're going to move to the next topic. It's back to the topic of development. We have another question submitted by a viewer. This question was submitted by Jean, and Jean asks, are you in favor of clear-cutting areas in order to build commercial or residential properties? If you disapprove of this widespread practice, what will you do to limit the practice? We want to start with Mr. Tecklenburg. You have 60 seconds to respond to the question from Jean.
So I'm not in favor of clear cutting for that style of development. And in our zoning rewrite that's happening right now, it was informed by what council passed a year or so ago, the update to our master plan. We're looking at zoning by elevation. So we do not build in low-lying areas that create future liability. Another thing, we passed a law just last year of prohibiting building on grade on slab on grade in low-lying areas. But that zoning rewrite will also look at our tree ordinance, because honestly, we were looking at the trees and not the forests. Our ordinance was dedicated to looking at each individual grand tree over a certain circumference, and now we'll also put in place measures that would protect a whole swath of trees or a forest.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, the same question to you on your approval or disapproval of widespread clear cutting. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, widespread clear cutting, I'm not in favor of. It's usually not necessary. Trees are a nice amenity. They absorb groundwater. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to having trees. So I think it's a smart business practice, frankly, to make sure that when you develop a piece of property, not just go out and take everything down. So for me, there are certain situations, not where clear cutting is necessary, but I like the idea of using things like what saltwater mitigation banks, where if somebody needs to get a little bit more here or cut a tree down here, they can save 10 trees over here. So those are proactive win-win situations that is not a one-size-fits-all, which is oftentimes difficult to implement into zoning and requires some vision and leadership. And again, that's the kind of area and expertise that I have, and I'm excited to bring that to City Hall.
All right, candidates, thank you. Carolyn?
Riley, thank you. Candidates, we will now discuss the issue of gentrification. We have another question from a viewer, and this one deals with this issue. Gentrification, of course, is the displacement of working class, often African American residents of a neighborhood by people who are wealthier, sometimes by developers and sometimes by businesses. So this question was submitted by Marcia, and she writes, gentrification is having a significant impact on older neighborhoods in the Charleston area, such as the Maryville and Ashleyville communities. What would you do to help restore, protect, and preserve older communities in Charleston that are presently going through gentrification? And now let me be honest and clear. I know Maryville well. I grew up in that community. My family is still there. My family is also in Ashleyville, so I understand this issue. I'd like to know, first, Mr. Cogswell, how would you address this issue? What would you do to protect older neighborhoods that are experiencing gentrification?
It's a great question. It's a huge issue. If you look at what the African American population has done over the past 10 years, most of which, obviously, Mayor Tecklenburg was at the helm, the population has been dropping rapidly. And we're losing a lot of our character, we're losing a lot of our DNA, and it needs protection. And so, from my standpoint, one of the ideas, and when I spoke to the Maryville and Ashleyville Neighborhood Association, talked about the idea of a property tax cap for longtime owner-occupied residents, so that residents that have been there for a long period of time, and there are versions of the Bailey Bill all over the country that you could be utilized, and I think that the school board would sign on because they would have to agree to it because they get some of the property taxes as well as the county. But it would help keep people in their homes and protect them against rising taxes because of development happening around them.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, the same question for you. What would you do to help protect older communities that are experiencing gentrification?
So gentrification is happening in vibrant cities all over the country and the world where market pricing demand has outstripped supply and prices have gone up. And renters are particularly susceptible. And in South Carolina, we don't have the ability by the city to have rent controls or restrictions on rental properties. We have a free property market in South Carolina. So we have to create more affordable housing. Last night at City Council, or 2 nights ago, we had 3 families that were there thanking the city because they were able to buy new homes that the city had provided through its home ownership program. We do more of that. We also have a program to help folks fix up their homes and stay in their homes if they want to. But those who are really susceptible are renters. We need to raise incomes. We need to provide protection and or assistance when renters are at risk.
Thank you, Mr. Tecklenburg. Riley?
Carolyn, thank you. Candidates, you mentioned affordable housing. We're not going to go in that direction with our next question. A 2022 South Carolina State of Homelessness report says 324 people were recorded as homeless on a single night here in the Lowcountry. While the Hope Center and Archer School renovation are helping, affordable housing continues to be a growing problem. Mr. Tecklenburg, what are your long-term solutions that have concrete plans behind them, and do they address the main reasons behind homelessness, such as addiction and mental health crisis? You have 60 seconds to respond.
So 2 thoughts, housing first and wraparound services. And in fact, the city under my administration opened what we called a Hope Center, where we provide wraparound services to those who are experiencing homelessness. And in fact, when I was first elected, if y'all remember, there was this tent city of hundreds of tents of homeless people living under I-26. And it took us a little while, but we got to know all those individuals and help them to find housing. We continue to do that today on a one-to-one basis. We've assisted over 2,000 people in the last year through our Hope Center, helping them find employment, helping them find housing, providing mental health services in partnership with Dorchester Charleston Mental Health Services and other medical services in partnership with MUSC. But helping folks find housing and then providing those wraparound services that they need. That's how we help those who want to end up in a better place.
Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you. Mr. Cogswell, the same question to you. You now have 60 seconds to respond.
Yeah, it's a critical issue. I do think housing is a big part of that. I do think the services that the mayor is talking about and the facility that he's looking to build, that's an example of where we see things differently. He's getting the city involved in this, these wraparound services. I would do something more in line with working with 180's Place, who is in essence doing a lot of the same things. And so you have 2 groups that are both trying to help homelessness, and it starts to get a little confusing and somewhat inefficient in my mind. So I would look to, instead of putting resources there and the city trying to run it, I would work with and partner with a local nonprofit that has a long and proven track record of doing incredible stuff for homelessness in our city. So again, it's a different way of looking at it. That's just an important distinction, I would say.
Candidates, we're going to move along for one final question. I'm sorry, Mr. Tecklenburg. Thank you. 15 seconds.
I would just say, by my faith, I believe that I'm judged, and I believe we are judged as a community by how we help those most in need. And having multiple providers provide services to those in need and those experiencing homelessness is the right approach.
All right, candidates, thank you. Carolyn?
Candidates, we ask that you be more concise with your answers because we are running short on time. So we would like to address the issue of short-term rentals. The question is, an issue that has been the center of debate in the surrounding communities such as Folly Beach and the Isle of Palms is whether there should be limits on the number of short-term rentals. The city of Charleston does not currently have a cap on these properties. So would you be in favor of one? Yes or no? Please explain, and we will allow you 30 seconds. Mr. Cogswell, we begin with you.
In terms of an aggregate cap, perhaps. I mean, again, you'd have to look into it. I do think what the city has done largely through working with the private sector in Elliottboro and Cannonboro is an example of a successful way of going about it. But in terms of an aggregate cap, yeah, I think the idea makes sense. But again, a lot of details would need to be determined on that. But don't want to have it all over the place. That does not make any sense by any stretch.
Thank you. Mr. Tecklenburg.
In fact, even though we don't have a maximum cap, we have some of the toughest regulations on short-term rentals of any city in the country. In fact, Airbnb folks complain to me about it all the time. In the historic district, you actually have to have the property on the national register, except for that one neighborhood that exempted themselves out way before I became mayor. Other parts of the city, the resident has to be in the home to operate a short-term rental. So it's controlling itself by the good regulations that we put in place 3 years ago.
All right. Well, candidates, thank you very much for your responses. We appreciate your participation in this process. We now move to closing statements. You have 60 seconds to make your closing statements. Mr. Cogswell, you will be allowed to go first as Mr. Tecklenburg received the first question. Mr. Cogswell.
Sure. Voters have a choice to make on Tuesday, and of course, early voting is tomorrow too. And you've got door number one. People know what's behind door number one. John Tecklenburg's been there for 8 years. I don't think that traffic is better. I don't think that affordability is better. I don't think that flooding is better. I don't think that livability is better. So people need to make up their mind on that. And as Clay Middleton said multiple times throughout this campaign, they said, look, if you like the direction that we've gone over the past 8 years and you want more of the same, vote for this guy. What I want to bring is change. I want to bring a pragmatic and bipartisan and unifying message to Charleston so that we can collectively address our issues and make Charleston a better place for the residents. So I'm really excited to bring that vision. I'm excited about what I've learned on the campaign trail, and what I would like to tell people is don't be too nervous about what's behind door number two. We've presented, I think, a pretty strong vision for our city and excited about our future.
Thank you, Mr. Cogswell. Mr. Tecklenburg, you have 60 seconds to make a closing statement.
Us this evening. I'm grateful and I'm excited for our future. I'm grateful for all the blessings that God has given us. We live in a beautiful, historic place. We're working on many things to make our city even better, supporting our public safety, supporting our police and fire. That's the number one job of city government. We are world class at addressing flooding and sea level rise. Check out our website. It's amazing what the city is doing, from projects to resources to expertise. It's just amazing. Affordable housing, we really need to work on. The city's doing more than any jurisdiction around, but we need all hands on deck. That's why we're working with the chamber and businesses and institutions and other cities and counties in the region, because we need to provide more affordable housing. with better public transportation, and that's coming as well. You hear my opponent talk about what a mess and how horrible things are. Yes, we got stuff to work on, but I'm all about making Charleston an even better place for our citizens.
Mr. Cogswell, Mr. Tecklenburg, thank you very much for being a part of a spirited conversation. We appreciate your participation in this, and we certainly hope that viewers feel better informed after tonight's discussion. Again, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. It goes by fast. It does, doesn't it?
And before we leave tonight, a reminder to you watching and listening, early voting is tomorrow from 8:30 until 5. The Charleston mayoral runoff election is Tuesday, November 21st.
And again, we want to thank our two candidates, John Tecklenburg, William Cogswell, for their time tonight. And again, News 2 will be breaking down tonight's debate on CountOn2.com during our post-debate show with Brendan Clark.
Thank you again for watching WCBD News 2's mayoral runoff debate. We hope you will enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you again for watching, and good night.